special beings? Yeah, check out the freakazoid version of me here. This picture, where we'll be going live here in just a second. Check out these pics. Let the beat ride. Look at this one. Check this one out.
Let the beat ride.
Look at it. Look at this one. Hold on.
Let the beat ride.
I mean, look at this. That's me. He's a vampire.
Let the beat ride.
What's up, special beings? Gang? Gary Sinise.
Let the beat ride. Let the beat ride. Let the beat ride.
Yo. What's up, block party right there? What's up, y'all? We're gonna get started here in just a second.
Let the beat ride.
Cheers. That's Brooks G right there.
Let the beat ride. Let the beat ride.
That's right. Thanks to Brooks G. Thanks to Brooks G for that one. Yo, what's up? What's up, y'all? Tonight we're covering Gilgamesh and Sinners. Sinners is the new movie from Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is the guy who did Black Panther, and this one has Michael B. Jordan in it. And this one is a smash. It's a smash. It's really doing well. It's making a lot of money. It's kind of a surprise hit, I think. I was not expecting this one. I didn't even see any trailers for this one. And if you've been to the movies in the past, I don't know, 4 years, you know that the trailers are out of control. I mean, you see the trailer for the movie for years before you get to it. And most of the movies now are, of course, coming out on streaming services. But this one is a proper movie. But we're going to talk about that one. And I'm also going to kind of compare and contrast it with the epic Gilgamesh, which I have been promising for a minute here. And it seems like a strange comparison, but I think that Gilgamesh is certainly worthy of us covering here because it is it's the earliest literary epic in terms of pure literature. And we haven't done it before. I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff. We've covered a lot of the epics and a lot of a big swath of classic literature in the canon. But I thought it would be worthy, it would be worthy of our time to go back and look at Gilgamesh because it's, number one, it's so old, and because I hadn't read it in many years. I took a class in 1999, damn, on myth and film, and this is the book that we used. This is in my final year of prep school, and so I went back and reread Gilgamesh a couple of times here, and I've still got the card that I used to get the book a year early. And this is a pretty interesting book, The Ancient Near East, because it also covers a lot of Sumerian and Akkadian literature, but mainly I'm going to look at this Penguin edition of Gilgamesh right here, and we're going to talk about of course, the hero's journey and what Gilgamesh represents, especially in terms of literature, and how we look at the hero's journey and the comparisons with the flood. And one of the things that we're going to sort of bring up and bring to mind here is the Gemini twin aspect of Gilgamesh with Gilgamesh and Enkidu. And that's right, when bookstores had books. That's right, Moldy. And how that plays into this movie Sinners. And let's start off with the film. I'm going to kind of go in between here. And we did survive Y2K. That's right, Notori. I've actually covered the movie Y2K over on the member stream. So thank you for giving me a little segue for that. If you guys want to support, then of course you can grab a membership. And you can also support me with the links provided. It's good to see everybody here again. Let's get back into some literature and some new film. Just to note, we went and watched the movie The Surfer today with Nick Cage. And that is an interesting movie. I'm not really going to cover. There are some comparisons with the movie Sinners, which is pretty interesting. I mean, I couldn't help but think of the movie was kind of going in the same direction, but we'll be covering that with Jay coming up pretty soon. Let me give a shout out before we begin also to some of our friends here who are really killing it. You guys, of course, I'm sure have seen Andy on Piers Morgan a bunch of times. Did you guys? I'm sure everybody here watches debate. If you haven't seen it, then check out Andrew Wilson and his debates. You can check out Jay was just on Piers Morgan. That was huge. I think he's doing Whatever podcast. We saw Jim Bob on Whatever podcast. Rachel is going to be going on Piers Morgan, our friend Rachel Wilson. So our friends are really, really doing well. So shout out to them. And this is going to be a great spring and a great summer. So let's get into some film here, some film and literature, because that's what we do over here. So let me start off by talking just a little bit about the movie Sinners. All right, I'm turning down the fan a little because I don't want it to bleed over here. And by the way, it's been a minute here, and I didn't do the update because last time I did, the audio started roboting heavily. So if I start roboting and getting all fuzzy, please just let me go. Let me know. Don't let me go. Let me know here in the chat so I can fix the audio, because you never know. Because the update, I try to avoid doing the updates because of that. So let's talk about Sinners a little bit. So. I don't know how to get into this. I'll just say this. First of all, judging by my audience here, I'll say this. you guys are not going to like this movie. You will not like it. And I am I try to be really diplomatic with films and with literature. We try to look at both sides of the thing, and I'm going to talk about some of the merits of it and what it does. This isn't just a review. We're going to do as deep of an analysis as we can of the movie. But I can say that if you haven't seen the film, I've watched it for you, so you don't have to. And I really don't think that you guys are going to like it. And it's not really whether we like the film or not. We're talking about things that have a cultural impact and what the revelatory aspects of it are, how relevant they are, what kind of programming there is, if we've seen more of what we were kind of leading up to and all this stuff. And I'll say this, I really wanted to like the movie a lot more than I did. I went into it with a pretty clear intentions, and I expected it to. I didn't know what I expected. I didn't know whether it would be a surprise. I really wanted to see it because it's such a hit. I mean, it's so big and it's so popular. We went to a 9:45 a.m. Showing on a Saturday, and it was totally sold out. And that's like a week or a week and a half. It would be a week or maybe 2 weeks into it, and that's pretty surprising. So what I really do like about the film is that it is there are a couple things that I really like about it. First of all, this is a movie starring Michael B. Jordan twice, and it's got Haley Steinfeld in it, and and what I really like about it is that I do like Michael B. Jordan a lot. I think he's really good. I like him as an actor. I really like him mainly because one of my friends who was trying to make, and he did get this greenlit, then it didn't happen at the last minute, as far as I know. I'm not privy to the ins and outs of Hollywood in that sense. It's not really my business, but I do know that he had written a series, and Michael B. Jordan was the kind of target main central actor in it. And if it didn't end up being Michael B. Jordan, it was going to be someone as best as they could get like him. And I liked that. And because of what the story was for that, I thought that he would fit. I like him as an actor. I think he's good. And he's certainly charismatic. I thought that the filmmaking was pretty decent, and it was certainly a pretty original script, and it was a kind of original story. What I really liked about the movie is that it was set in Clarksdale, Mississippi, of course, where I just was. I was just there when was that? It was February. So I went down to the crossroads. They see me at the crossroads. Right? It was the first of the month. Yesterday, it's the first of the month. Hey, we having a wonderful day. Why the first of the month? Yeah, so we went down to the crossroads. We went to the Clarksdale Blues Museum, and we saw all of the exhibits for all of these people. Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, Smokestack Lightning, of course, right? Howlin' Wolf. Smokestack Lightning, the song Smokestack is going to play a major role in this film, and it was a really cool museum. I think everybody should go there and check that out. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how the blues, especially Delta blues, play into American musical history and what they really did interesting in this film. I really like that. Of course, it was filmed in Louisiana, and that made sense. I knew that it wasn't filmed in Clarksdale, but it was set in Clarksdale, and it was set during sort of Jim Crow. It was 1932, I think they set the film, and I thought that one cool. I'm talking about positive things about the movie here, so I'm gonna start off with that. I liked that the character development was central to the film, and that it wasn't just runaway action. I thought that the plot was fairly straightforward for the most part. And of course, this is supposed to be a vampire movie, which I like. I've covered a lot of vampire stuff. I'm a total vampire nerd, I guess. We did Bram Stoker's Dracula early on. We did the literary analysis for that. We've done entire streams on vampires. We did Let the Right One In and Byzantium, and we did the David Bowie movie, and we did The Hunger, and we've done all of this stuff. Of course, I like the Bat for Lashes album with The Hunger on it. And Lost Boys is a favorite movie of mine. Everybody here, I'm sure, likes Lost Boys. We all like that sort of stuff. And of course, one of the other great things about the film is that it brings in, this was unusual in the film, it brings in an Irish aspect to the film because it brings in our what's his face, the Anglo-Irish actor who was in the movie 71, the 71 that we covered. What's the fellow's name? Anyway, that was cool. But so here's some of the problems with the film. First of all, it's not actually a vampire movie. There are vampirical aspects to it, and it certainly has explicit vampires. But the problem is that most of the movie is not vampire, and it gets to be a point where the trailers sort of become disingenuous. Maybe I don't know if it's the trailer's fault. But it is certainly, SW says, voodoo has zombies and not vamps. Yeah, so that is true. The word zombie is a Haitian voodoo word. And voodoo plays more of a central role, I think, in the film than even the vampires do. But that's kind of, I guess we'll sort of see how that goes in terms of the analysis. But what really sort of annoyed me is that the character development starts to bleed into the plot development, and we have too much plot. There's too much, and that seems weird for a movie, because oftentimes we get films where we don't know what the plot. I mean, poor movies are made every year. Movies that are just done poorly, or that have too much. They don't have enough character development, and there's too much of the. There's just too much action. There's too much exposition. And so you would think that with character development and plot development, we would really get a hold on something that we care about in the film. And certainly it is popular and people are resonating with the movie. But it becomes, it is too plot driven. It's too character driven. There are so many characters in the movie, which can be fine, that I didn't like at all. And I think that I'm trying to figure out how to put this as delicately as I can. Not delicately, but to be sort of fair to the movie, because I think it would be very easy to say that you all, and that we are not going to like the movie because it is too much about how I'm the bad guy, of course. I'm the bad guy in Mississippi, and so, everything sucks, and so, people just want to be free, and can't I just leave them alone? People like me, I guess, that look like me. And one of the interesting things that happens in the movie is that I really did care about some of the characters. I thought that Michael B. Jordan's Gemini twin characters were interesting, and it turns out that in the film, that first of all, the main character is this musician, and he should have listened to his father. His father is one of the only characters in the movie that I really liked, that I really cared about, and he should have. The movie kind of shows you the lesson that he should have listened to him. So all right, so here's what happens in the film. Basically, we start off with an image of a young guy, young Mississippi black male, a black male walking into a rural church in Clarksdale, and he's holding a broken guitar, and he by the way, he has to wait at the door of the church when he walks in. He has to be invited in. He's invited in by his father. His father is the preacher, and he's an old fellow with a kind of very rural, not Pentecostal church, just a rural Mississippi Christian church, white clapper church. And it's early morning. We see outside that he has Well, he comes in and his father gives him a hug, and then we see 24 hours earlier. So now we frame the story with a sort of leading up to the 24 hours, and then we are going to go far into the future at the end of it. But the central events take place within that frame. And when we go back to the earliest part of the 24 hours, we see the young man, and he's out in the cotton fields. He's picking cotton. He's picking cotton. This is Mississippi we're talking about. You drive down to Mississippi where we just were, where my family is, and it's full of cotton fields. So you go out there, and the cotton fields are sort of replete, and in these verdant fields dotted with snow, which is the cotton. And then he's working at his job. He's getting paid for it. He goes back home. It's early morning. We see the low light of the sunrise, and we see him walk into a house, and he wakes up his sisters. And there's a pleasant atmosphere because this is what I'm getting at with the film, that even though we're in Jim Crow, Mississippi, and even though it's these people are sharecroppers and they're very poor, they seem to be rich in spirit, and they have a family. There's the father there. He's got the church. And the people are making the best of what they have, and they have a community. And it seems to be all of the things that we sort of long for in the post-modern world, where even people who are extremely, obviously this is the age-old human thing, that even though people are extremely monetarily rich, people have good jobs and good lives. It seems like they seem to be missing something, and that is that they miss time with their families. They don't have time with their families. They don't have any sort of community, and they live in the kind of thing that people used to rail about this in the old Gen X days. Like watch Fight Club, for example. We covered Fight Club. We covered the book, and it's like you've got your dead-end job, and you've got your all of your products and stuff, and you live in your house, and you may even go back home to your family, and you got your 9 to 5. But guess what? Things were pretty good. They were actually pretty good. People railed about those things because really it became kind of their own fault, because they didn't work hard enough at spending time with their families or having a religious life or whatever it was. But they had money, and they had the opportunity to provide for their families. And so the problem becomes something from within. Well, here we have the opposite. We have, not much money, but we've got what looks like a great setting for an American pastoral. Well, the father brings up he tells the son in the frame at the beginning of the movie that he says, son, I'm not going to stop you from going and playing that guitar and going out and playing your gigs and whatever he wants to do as a blues musician in the Delta. But if you keep going out there, then one day when you go out and play with the devil, he's going to follow you back home. And the father's right. He's actually right in this sense. And that's literally what happens in the movie. Well, so Michael B. Jordan shows up, and it's actually two of them. He's a Gemini twin here. He's Smoke and Stack. And I'm not going to get into, I think it's kind of pretty obvious and simplistic how we have the Smoke and the Stack characters with the Howlin' Wolf reference. And, one's wearing blue, one's wearing red. I think this is kind of a light symbolism in the movie. It's not really that important because really the characters are pretty unidentifiable. I mean, there's really not that much difference between them, even though they are identical twins. It really doesn't matter in terms of the plot, because what's going to happen is that, like in Gilgamesh, where Gilgamesh has the shadow self of Enkidu created for him by the gods, because Gilgamesh begins in the epic as a pretty horrible character. He's a 16, 17 foot tall, really it's a post-flood, but it's kind of a pre-flood world, a remnant world where he's a giant, and he's the king of Uruk, and he has prima nocta with all of the people, with all of the women in the town, and he can basically do what he wants with everyone. So the problem is that he is a monster in his town, laid out in whatever it is, 7 square miles, and so the townspeople, the regular people, kind of they pray to the gods and they wish for some sort of reckoning for Gilgamesh. Well, they end up creating the gods end up creating a character out of clay called Enkidu, and Enkidu is a kind of natural man. He's also a man without parents. He's a kind of Adamic character, but he also represents something of a kind of, he's a beast character, but he becomes more human as time goes on, and he still has the innocence and beauty of the noble savage. But when they create him, he is created as specifically as a shadow self for Gilgamesh. So when he meets Gilgamesh, they end up fighting, and Gilgamesh meets basically himself, and they become friends. So on the outside, they are a kind of Riggs and Murtaugh of the ancient world, and they go on adventures. And eventually, when Enkidu dies, sacrificing himself in a sense for Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh weeps because he's lost his friend. All Gilgamesh really wanted was a friend and someone to put him in check. And Enkidu has he's a kind of pure will in the epic. And when he sacrifices himself for Gilgamesh, Gilgamesh goes looking for immortality. This is something that he started off in the epic looking for. But when he's looking for immortality, he's actually looking for his friend in the afterlife, in the underworld. He wants to find him and honor him. But what happens is that Gilgamesh and Enkidu sort of, in a way, get absorbed into one character. So that now Gilgamesh, instead of being all Freudian super ego, I suppose, if that's how you want to, there's not really any other way to say it. He's almost like a character who exists completely on the outside with no sort of conscience on the inside. And so when the death of Enkidu occurs, he absorbs him, and now he's sort of a complete man who goes searching for immortality, and in the end finally finds that immortality is like with Achilles in the Iliad, which was influenced by Gilgamesh. His immortality rests in the legend or the stories of himself. Now, this is interesting because in Sinners we have these Gemini twins, kind of it would be kind of anachronistic, like with a Castor and Pollux, but we have these two characters who are trying to, they come down from Chicago. So this is the Chicago diaspora. So we have, this is like in Raisin in the Sun. We have all of the former slaves from Mississippi. A big contingent of them go straight up north all the way to Chicago at the end of the War of Northern Aggression, and then end up in industrial Chicago. And we have these two characters, Smoke and Stack, both played by Michael B. Jordan. Now, what happens is that at the beginning of the film, we see that there's a scene where they've come back and they are trying to start, basically, they're trying to start a juke. They're going to start a big club on the outskirts of Clarksdale, and they're going to employ a bunch of people from the town to be part of it. So they go looking they need a bouncer, they need bartenders, they've got liquor that they brought down from Chicago, they've got Irish beer, which is a thing in the film, they need musical, they need entertainment, they need people to sort of hold the place down, and then of course they need customers, they need the puntas, and they need people to come to the club. And this is pretty cool because it seems like, this is American. They're starting a business. But the problem is that this becomes a spiritual pursuit, and that we see that the two characters, this is foreshadowed by the serpent in the movie, because when they go out into the wilderness and they uncover one of their cars that they brought down full of liquor that they've ripped off from Al Capone and from the Irish mob, which is part of this, the two characters have played off the they played off the two white gangs in Chicago playing off each other, and then they're going to go to war with each other, and they've taken the liquor to come down and start their own thing. And this is fine with the mob. This is sort of a thing that happens with the mob in the 30s. But the problem is that there's going to be some sort of reckoning, and either it's going to be from them or they're going to self-destruct, which is actually in a way what happens. So when they come down and they show the main character, I don't even remember his name, the main protagonist, the young guy, who by the way talks like this the whole movie. So what you guys are saying. So what you guys are saying is I'm going to keep playing the guitar. He's got this fucking weird thing that he does with his voice like this. I'm like, dude, you're putting too much emphasis, too much energy on how you're talking. Your mouth is moving too much for the words you're saying. So you guys think I'm going to play guitar with my... And I'm like, okay. They're riding in the car through Clarksdale, and he's playing the guitar, and he starts playing some Mississippi blues, and it sounds pretty cool. But I was more enthusiastic about how Michael B. Jordan feels about him playing guitar than the actual guitar. Because look, the truth is, and I'm half from there, that the Delta blues is not great. Okay, it's important, but no one is sitting, and I'm very diplomatic with music. Okay, one thing that I hate is when, there's nothing worse than when you play a piece of music for somebody, you play a song and they say, no, it's trash or whatever. And you're like, well, you don't have any taste. You don't understand what music is. It's just a song. It's just a fucking pop song or something or whatever. People need to get over their hang-ups about when somebody plays them some music. Just sit back and fucking enjoy something now and again. It can be anything. It can be classical music. It can be fine. It can be Delta blues. It can be rap. It can be trap. It can be techno. It doesn't matter. Just if it's good, it's good. You don't work for Spin Magazine in the 90s. Okay, you don't have to be the guy at the music store who only plays fucking MC5 or whatever. That shit always has pissed me off. But with all that being said, he does play this song and it's not good. I mean, and I'm the most diplomatic with music, but it's like, and he's like, well, if he had stuck with Howlin' Wolf and he had a Howlin' Wolf voice, that would have been pretty cool. But instead, he's like, cornfields getting all dry, and you're like, ugh. But I like Michael B. Jordan's reaction to it because he says basically, he's like, whoa, let's go. Okay, we got some music. That becomes a problem later on in the movie, and I'll get to what that is. But anyway, so he where was I? God, I'm out of breath with all this shit. So anyway, so he's playing the music, which is not great. Oh yeah, so they go to the car and they uncover it, and all of a sudden there's a rattlesnake sitting right there in the back of the truck. I've never seen a rattlesnake in Mississippi. I didn't know that was a. That's not really. It's kind of incongruous, but whatever. It's a snake. It's a serpent, and the Gemini twins pull out their World War I trench dagger, and they stab the snake. Okay, so now they've killed the snake, but this means that something's going to come for them later. This is kind of the snake represents Chekhov's gun in a way, with a biological creature, a biologic. That's what they call it in the alien hearings, the biologics. Well, we found some biologics. Now I hear that damn word everywhere, biologics. So they kill the snake. By the way, I will say that I knew in the film that was going to indicate that the two brothers had been in World War I in the Great War, because this is where watching Pawn Stars really gets you in life, because I'd seen that trench knife in an episode of like season 2 of Pawn Stars back in 2010 or whatever, because it's part of it was the reason they didn't buy it was it was banned by the Geneva Convention because the blade has a pyramidal blade, which is violates the Geneva Convention in terms of wounding, right? So, but it's a knife with knuckle dusters on it, and I knew that those two characters were going to end up somehow coming from the Great War. Well, So anyway, so they go off and they go into town and, Smoke and Stack are back and they become gangsters and they do look cool. I mean, they look pretty fucking fly. Like they've got cool suits on, they got, jewelry and it really pops and they got their gold, like they've got these pretty cool, they're not grills, but like gold teeth. Man, I wish I could get some fucking gold teeth. Damn, dude, I'm telling you, if I could, somebody send me $1 million super chat so I can get some platinum grills. Because I want to get those, or I want to get some Bojiden chompers. Okay, I want to be able to smile and my teeth like gleam and glint in the dark. That's what I want my teeth to look like. I think that looks fucking awesome. Or just platinum. I want some platinum and diamond teeth. Dude, that'd be sick. And I'm not talking like removable grills. I want those to be my real teeth. You know what? I want teeth like Jaws in Moonraker. I want to be able to bite through a damn iron cage. Okay, so anyway, so they look pretty fly. They're pretty cool or whatever. And they are trying to employ the people in the town. And they along the way, one of the interesting things that the director does here is he has these outside characters who come in who are from the town. They're coming back. They've gone to Chicago and now they're coming back. And they, yeah, that's right, Kanye teeth. Or I don't know now. And they are giving lessons to the people in the town. So, for instance, when they tell one of the girls, okay, I'll give you $10 a night or whatever, and then she's like, okay, and they're like, no, you got to learn how to barter. You got to learn how to barter, right? So she's like, all right, I want $20, and they're like, $10, best I can do. See, there's Pawn Stars again. They should have just had them in the movie. So anyway, So they are giving like lessons to the people of the town. They're trying to modernize them in a sense, or get them used to how a good way to do business. Yeah, I need them Riff Raff grills. Dude, I love Riff Raff. I love Riff Raff's new album. I love Spirit of Thunder. Anyway, so let's kind of cut through some of this shit, and let's talk about what happens with the vampire. So the first time we see the main vampire, we see him. This was pretty cool. So he jumps into the frame, and we've seen flash forwards of vampire faces and of blood, and we know that it's going to kind of turn into From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, the movie is not From Dusk Till Dawn. You would think it would be, and the trailer would lead you to believe that it would be, and I guess maybe critics or people reviewing the film say that it has a hefty influence from that film, but it really doesn't. And I think this is kind of good and bad. The good thing about From Dusk Till Dawn by Quentin Tarantino, which is a fun movie. It's Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez, and that's early George Clooney, Caesar Dew, pretty cool. It has elements of John Carpenter in it, and it's basically, Tarantino and what's his name, and Clune Dog, and it's Juliette Lewis and Harvey Keitel, and they've kidnapped this family, and they got to stay the night at this, roadhouse, and it's a cool movie because it starts off with two bad guys who, and Tarantino is playing a kind of Henry Lee Lucas in the movie, but he kind of goes away pretty quickly. And then we have Clooney, who is the bad guy in the film, but becomes a guy who protects the rest of the family because there's a greater threat, and that is that the roadhouse turns into a den of kind of campy vampires. And it's a pretty cool movie. Ironically, that movie probably has a better and more concise character development than this film does, because when you overdo it with characters, you put too much emphasis on the characters become insistent. Like Peter Griffin says, this is such an adept comment, such a profound thing to say on Family Guy of all places, which is great. But one of the things about the difference between parody and satire essentially is that parody holds up a mirror to society and plays for laughs, whereas satire is more of a cutting and cunning critique on political motivations, and is not the humor in it is usually only it works because sometimes in the world, and we've seen this in the last 4 years, that satire becomes the only acceptable vehicle for truth, and we don't. That only happens in a kind of extreme society. The thing with, with satire and Jonathan Swift that I never liked is that, first of all, I hate the Jonathan Swift story. What's the Jonathan? Yeah, A Modest Proposal. I fucking hate Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal. I'm sure everybody has read that or you read that in literature class, but I really hate it. I think it's a terrible example of satire because it is not likable to me. It's profane and disgusting, and it's not something that I think that I relate to, and that it's just a fucking satanic piece of shit that I really, really don't like that. I really don't like A Modest Proposal. And I get it, but I don't think it's funny. It goes too far into something that is not funny at all, and that is, in a satirical sense, is supposed to hold up the ridiculous nature of law, but it makes me go the opposite way. And that sort of happens in this film. And what I mean by that is this, that if the characters are trying to, in this movie, are trying to form a juke joint so that they can be outside of the norms of society and they can have some fun, right? Let's say they want to go have some fun. They want to go have a bar. They want to go dance and be sweaty all over one another and play some shitty music. It's fine. Who gives a shit? That's fine. People got to let off some steam and have fun. But the whole point of the movie becomes that they want to be free. But their freedom is freedom to do anything with impunity. They want to be free to have their voodoo and have the man wear his mojo sack and to sweat and sin all over each other. And so that then they're presented with an even worse aspect, which is the Irish vampire shows up, and he looks like he's just come straight out of hell. So he's just materialized, and he's literally burning. He shows up, and his skin is literally burning, and he looks like he's just jumped right out of the hell dimension in Event Horizon. And he shows up at this house, and there are these two hillbillies living in the house, this man and his wife, and he looks inside. And, of course, they've got the, what letter can I use? They've got the, let's say, triple L uniform, okay? They've got the thing with the thing and the thing Kanye was doing. They got that thing there. And he says, oh, okay. And they say, not welcome, right, to this Irishman who just showed up. Well, he can't come in. They got to let him in. And then they, of course, they let him in. They let the wrong one in. And then the Choctaws show up. By the way, this was really annoying that the Choctaws show up in a vigilante posse, and they're looking for this damn devil who's been running around. And they say, get on out of here. And the Choctaws are like, you don't understand. You let the wrong one in, and we're here to get him. This is kind of a poltergeist influence here, I think, somehow. With the Carol Ann, this house is clear. Remember Poltergeist 2? They got the Indian guy, and then they got the little woman. And the Indian guy always ends up being the sort of guide to the spirit world. Well, these guys, I mean, they do say, may God protect you. So they say that, and then they ride off into the sunset because it's sunset and it's going to be dark. I wanted those guys to show up. I wanted them to come back. They were cool. They were like the coolest part of the movie to me. And so then we find when the wife goes back into the house that the husband has been turned by the Irish vampire. Now, the Irishman, they think he's some kind of a haint or something. We talked about the haint. Remember, I talked about the haints with Andy and Jerry. We did that stream 3 years ago or something on Appalachian what was it? Appalachian ghost stories and all that on this documentary that we covered over on the Crucible. But it turns out he's not that. He's an ancient vampire, and this makes sense because it's also a callback to Bram Stoker, who's an Irishman, and who makes Dracula, who forms Dracula and combines him with, instead of being an Irish vampire, he ends up being an Eastern European vampire. And then we get the based Vlad the Impaler, who was based, right? Who was the defender of Christianity against the hordes of Saracens, who now turns into a vampire. And so that comes back into the Anglo-Irish world. Well, this is sort of, we get our sort of, our pedigree for this vampire through him. And so when he turns the triple L, the LLL people, and they come over to the juke joint, and everybody's having fun inside, and they show up, now an interesting thing happens. Is they try to come in, and they have a song to play. And so now we get one of the major themes of the movie, which is that the vampire is attracted to, he's called to the unnamed protagonist. I don't even remember his name, but the main kid protagonist musician, because he hears his song and he wants to use music as a kind of call to turn an entire group of people into a vampire cult so that they can have their own society, which is basically what happens in Paradise Lost. This is the same as when Satan ends up at the beginning in book 1 of Paradise Lost. He is in hell. This is pandemonium. Remember, Shakespeare later said in the Tempest that hell is empty and all the devils are here. Pandemonium. All the devils are in pandemonium. They formed their city with all of the fallen angels, and they have the same MO. Their MO in the beginning of Paradise Lost is essentially that they want the ability to, they recognize right away when it begins. I've covered Paradise Lost. You go back to the very beginning of this channel, that they recognize God's majesty. They say that God won. St. Michael has kicked them out down into thrice utmost to the farthest pole. They're down in hell, and they're certainly down below. They are far away from heaven. They can see heaven in the distance. The lightning is still flashing from the battle where they've just been purged. They've fallen, and now they are fallen angels. And they recognize that since they cannot win, all they can do is subvert and pervert goodness. And so they gather together, and they still have their indomitable will, essentially, that God has left them, and they recognize that. But they're going to make their way back up into creation, because the fallen angels, the demons, have heard of this thing called creation, where there's a thing called Eden, and then Satan crosses the abyss, makes his way up, turns into a serpent, and then he turns them. He turns Adam and Eve. And there are echoes of this, of course, in much of literature. This is even more of an archetypal story and thematic motif, I suppose, than anything in Gilgamesh can give us, because Gilgamesh also has some of this. We have Enkidu, when he's created, shows up, and the first thing that happens is one of the gods sends a temple harlot to turn, so essentially sends Lilith to turn Enkidu into a person. So she basically corrupts this pure creation into a city-dwelling person by introducing him to sexuality, sensuality, and lust. And then and of course, one of the things is then giving him clothing. Remember that Adam and Eve realized they were naked and they were ashamed. And so Enkidu gets clothes and then goes off and then meets Gilgamesh and does this thing that I just described. But in this one, what happens is that we begin in nature, and we see nature, we see God's creation, we see the low light in the morning light. It's beautiful. We see a literal cross, we see a church, we see a patriarchal figure saying, "Listen to my advice, son, don't do this thing," and the son goes off and does it anyway. We also see these characters show up. There's a serpent, and then we see them building structures, and now they are sort of marked. They're kind of marked like Cain, which is what the two characters are. They sort of have been marked in a sense. They've gone off and done their gangster duty, but they are marked by they're actually marked by their wealth. And so they end up in this barn that they've bought from a triple L figure who, of course, you're going to see is going to be the bad guy, right? But when the Irishmen show up, this is also an anti-Trinity. They have they have three of them. There's two guys, and then there's a Lilith character, and so they show up, and then they say, "Let us in. We can entertain you guys. We can play music for you," because they also have the ability of music. We talked about this in the analysis of The Witch. Remember, because in both The Witch and Hereditary, music plays an especially hypnotic. It plays an especially hypnotic role because the first thing that happens, remember, when we see the witch character at the end when when Lucifer shows up, is he's Black Phillip. We hear the sound of bells. We see bells on his feet stepping from a hoof figure, a hoof. What do you call that? Oh, sorry, Mom. We need to borrow this. We need to borrow this. We hit a deer. Hold on. Sorry, Mom. We need to borrow this. We hit a deer. So we got to cut off the foot. What do you call it? The foot? The hoof. The hoof. We got to cut off the hoof. Hey, looks like somebody we know. So we see the hoof turn into the belled foot. And then, of course, we see Lucifer, Black Phillip, show up and say, "Wouldst thou like to live fergaliciously? Wouldst thou like a pretty dress? The taste of butter? Remove thy shift." Right. So we hear the tinkling of bells, just like in Hereditary when Paimon shows up, and it's the apotheosis of Paimon, now in the figure of the son who's undergone his turmoil in his creation through destruction, right, into this demon character with the bowing, decapitated heads of his family up in the hovering treehouse marked by the rune. What do we hear? We hear bells and a kind of discordant devil's tritone organ playing. So this is the same thing with these guys, because with the two guys and the girl, because they show up and they want to play music. That's their way into the cult for everybody. And what happens actually is that they won't let them in because they recognize them. Now, this is where the movie really, for me, goes kind of off the rails, because Michael B. Jordan, one of the things he does is he goes back and he meets with his wife that he has run away from. And through a kind of subtle exposition here, this was actually done really well. We find out that we see that she is a Michael Obama, and I mean Michael Obama. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. I'm trying to be fair, but I mean, she is. She is a Michael Obama damn witch, and she is doing her little spells, and she's got her little potions or whatever. And the first thing she's doing is giving this child a fucking thing, and the child goes off, and she's, but she's the good witch, apparently. No, she's in there doing her spells. And then Michael B. Jordan says, well, it wasn't enough to save our daughter, so we know they had a daughter. They lost their daughter. And she's playing around with black magic, and she is a handsome woman. She is, and man, they get sweaty. Man, they start knocking boots. And your body all over my body. They knock boots. One of my problems with the movie is that, let's just play it back a little here. One of my problems was that it was too explicit. And look, man, I'm not prudish when it comes to movies. I like my Skinamax Basic Instinct, my Joe Esterhazy. I like my sexual and violent movies every now and again. I mean, come on. as long as it's done well and it's, cool and it can be kind of noirish or, whatever. But this was not it, man. This was not it. This was just crass. And I don't like that. I don't like, I would say you got to see it, but don't see it. I mean, the body, the bouncer goes off and he's got to relieve himself and there's a straight up shot of it. And I don't remember ever seeing that in the movie. And it becomes a kind of humorous point, and it's like, it's not funny at all. And but there is a role, there is a reason and a role of why this takes place in the film. And so I can understand that, because one of the things was, and I think this in the movie was not purposeful, was that we see these characters really going at it. I mean, they are going at it. But what that shows you is that what they described as sweating all over each other and the kind of the shaking sin that we see in the movie ends up being them. They have there's a hallucinatory scene. This is probably the most impactful scene of the movie, or that's what the filmmakers thought it was going to be. They're playing music, everybody's dancing inside, and then we see that the barn burns down. It's a barn burner. We see the barn burn down, but it's only in a spiritual sense because all the people are still in it. It's still a full barn, but it's burning down. The smoke is going into the sky. And all of a sudden, we see this montage, and this is very weird, of all of the black musical influences over time showing up in a kind of outside of time sequence where we have Yoruba dancers, and we have Harari musicians, and we have Grandmaster Flash shows up. Bootsy Collins shows up playing a damn guitar solo. I thought that was weird because who even knows if that's relevant anymore, or if it's even whatever. And we see then there's a ballet dancer, and and I get it. Look, I get it, because I don't care about. You can be anyone in any culture anywhere in the world, and if you have your thing and you have your music and you have your whatever it is, that's fine to me. That's great. People should celebrate their own thing. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But what happens is that it becomes so insistent that it shows that clearly I'm supposed to think that American music is just this, and that this is and it's not, and also that they're in a barn burning, and the witch woman is there with her voodoo, and it becomes a fucking Black Sabbath, like a witch's Sabbath. I mean, it becomes outright satanic, and the kind of gall to say that is different from the Irish vampires coming in, and that there are levels of goodness and badness here. It's all bad. Because when the vampires show up, they're not allowed in. They do kind of flip it a little bit. This was kind of cool. They sort of flip it so that the main vampire says, "Why can't we come in?" Oh, he says, "Oh, that's because it's the color of our skin." So now they won't be let in because they're white, but it's the color of their skin, and so there's a sort of solidarity that happens here in the movie. But the interesting thing was that this is natural for this to happen at the time, especially because you remember the title of John Lydon's autobiography, which I have up here, is "No Blacks, No Irish, No Dogs." That's a real sign that occurred in London. This is true of the Irish nationalist Catholic. The people that were not allowed into the place. But here's my problem with this. I don't have any sympathy for you when it's like here's the thing with the Irish nationalist, the evil landlord thing. My problem is that if you are a person living in fucking mud, and you're living in a bog and you're living in mud, and all of a sudden you've got a place to live, and you've got a family there, and you don't pay your bill, well, that's your fucking fault. You should have paid. You took the deal. You took the choice. You took the thing. You got a house. And now you don't like it, and you're not going to pay your bill, so you're going to burn down the guy's stuff. And you're going to try and burn out all the landlords. Now the landlords suck too, okay? But the problem is that you cannot have your cake and eat it too. You can't say we want liberation and freedom, but then the freedom comes with no cost, because that's the whole point. That the film is all about having freedom at any cost, and it's really just the freedom to sin. It's the freedom to, for this woman to do her spells, and for them to, great, they're looking out for the people at the time. I mean, gangsters are especially great at providing things for people that they could not get because of many different reasons, all the socioeconomic reasons, all the stuff. They want all those things. Okay. And if there's one thing that gangsters that I think we probably can all respect about this is that, first of all, fuck the system or whatever, but also that they want to provide for their families. They want their. I never saw a CARTEL dude high up that didn't send his kid off to boarding school. I don't see gangsters that want their kids to be part of it. I'm sure that's the case in some places, but for the most part, that's the whole thing. You want your family to have better than you had, and you want your family to be. But in this, it's that they want to be able to do all this stuff, and they think that it has no cost. And the real cost in the movie, and maybe this is very clever by Coogler, but I don't think so. I think this is unintentional. That the cost is the cost to your soul. And this is sort of shown in the film by the fact that the vampires are showing up to the bad people. They're showing up to the people that are already soaked in sin. Now, we're all soaked in sin, but they're showing up to people that are having an outright, hey, there's Token. Hey, Token, right there. I've been meaning to ask you, buddy, because I remember you and you mentioning Bret Easton Ellis a long time ago. I figured out that this is a total sideline, but Bret Easton Ellis went to my school. He went to my school in Richmond until he was 14 years old. Can you please ask him? You're friends with him. I remember this from years ago. Can you please ask him if he went to school in Richmond until he was 14 years old and get back to me? Send me an email at madmaximism with 2 X's at gmail.com, because, and I'm not going to name it here, but it'd be easy to figure out. But did he live in Richmond? Did he go there until he was 14? And then did he move off to Sherman Oaks and go to Buckley? If you can do that, I would appreciate that. That would be really sweet. So what was I saying? So the vampires show up, and eventually, by the way, they are let in. They're let in, and they do their From Dusk Till Dawn sequence, which is about 4 minutes of the movie. It's not really long, and that was kind of cool. But they're let in because the Chinaman woman in there with the man and the husband, which that was also an anachronism in the thing. I did not really understand why that was in there. I think I understand why the filmmakers put those characters in there, because they're saying that all of these influences that occurred when America was built, for instance, with railroads. I mean, that's just to be real about it, and all this stuff. They were, I think that's why they were there, but it did not. Asian American, please. That's proper nomenclature. It was an anachronism, and so when the husband gets turned, the wife is so pissed about the vampire threatening to go after her daughter. But guess what? He hadn't gone after the daughter, and they didn't, and they weren't called to that. Wouldn't they have done that? Why would they be at the barn and not have gone after them in the first place? They would have just done that. So, yeah, I think Token that Bret Easton Ellis lived in Bird Park. I know he lived here in the early 90s, and when he wrote The Informers, and that he may have come back in the late 90s when he done Glamorama. But I think that he lived here until 1974 and went to my prep school. And that was part of his inspiration for class system, for the sort of class system and the properties of the elites and their delineation in some of the earlier books, especially Less Than Zero and American Psycho. So tell me if that's true, because if that's true, I want to do a stream on that. Sorry, y'all, that was a little inside baseball. Why do they call it inside baseball? Does that make sense? Why do they call it inside baseball? I mean, I get it. I get what the expression means, but they're playing baseball outside. Where did the term come from? Why inside baseball? That's a real dumbass question to ask. I get it. Yeah, Delta is still crazy. Bazed should have gone to a trail ride. Delta's still crazy. You talking about Delta State University? The Fighting Okras? That's a community college down there in the Delta. The Delta is beautiful. If you go down south, which everyone should, then you should go to the Delta. You should go down to where music was born. Now, here I want to transition into something that Jim Morrison, of all people, said, because this is pretty important, I think, for part of the film. And by the way, if you want to support me, please, can you do that with the links provided? You can, of course, go to what I've got pinned up there and hit me up in my PayPal. You can also get a membership. You can hit me right here. Hit me up right here on my PayPal. And this is a sponsored stream, by the way, and I'm going to get to the super chats. People have been very generous. And if you guys want to send a super chat, you can send a super chat. You can hit me up directly right here. I need the money. Send it all in the big old metallurgy. Yeah, I need the money. Please help me out. Got some big moves, some big things on the way. So please, if you want to, if you can, that'd be really great. Like an inside pitch in baseball. Thank you. The pitch? Like what? On a fucking football field? On the football pitch? I get it. Thank you, buddy. The inside pitch, like, you're going to the inside. I got it. Thank you, Chief 24. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Henley, did you just realize that he went to the same prep school as Brad Easton Ellis? Well, let me tell you a little story. This is fucking weird, okay? You know how I'm 11 level psychic? This has nothing to do with the topic tonight. This is a totally different topic. Yeah, so I woke up in the middle of the night the other night, and I was thinking about it, and I thought, hey, GPT is for silly billies, but if it's good for anything, it might be good for a question that I've asked, and then I can't ever find anything for. So I literally looked up. I searched on GPT, when did Brad Easton Ellis live in Richmond, Virginia? And it gave me a bunch of links. I've read most of the articles and most of the interviews from Paris Review and others about him living here. And I realized that from something even weirder about when I did The Informers, and then it stayed to the beginning that he lived in New York and Richmond. And then I read that in an article that he had come here. He was living with someone in Bird Park while he was writing the book, while the owner of the house was away on the gubernatorial campaign. But I searched that, and it said yes. And then my second question was, what school did he go to? And it named my prep school. So apparently and it made sense. And it was a thing that it's this total schizoidal, psychic, driving thinking. But I woke up in the middle of the night thinking that he had gone to my school for some reason that made sense to me in some sort of thing I was having in a dream. And then it was confirmed on theirs. But can you confirm it for me, please? Because I think that would be really, really interesting. Because if that's true, that makes sense. And I asked my old AP teacher who taught there for 50 plus years if he taught him. Yeah, and of course, because that was upper school and Brad Easton Ellis would have left in middle school, but I wanted to see if that was the case. It's kind of neither here nor there. I understand. I also make a distinction, of course, between the motivations in an artist's private life and what occurs once they put the pen to the page, once they are writing a character. It's two different lives. I understand that. It's kind of neither here nor there. And that also, in a way, in a weird segue, sort of plays into this particular film, because I'm not really interested in anything in the filmmakers' lives. I'm just interested in the final product. And part of that, again, as another segue, is what happens with, of all people, Gilgamesh and Enkidu. I know that sounds like a pretty superficial connection there, but it's actually not, because we don't know anything about the Gilgamesh writer. We don't know anything about the Gilgamesh poet. And my theory with this, by the way, is that a lot of scholars now, especially in the atheistic academic sense, they love to say, since the discovery of these Sumerian and Akkadian tablets in the 19th century, that now we see that that the story of the flood and Noah came from Gilgamesh. That's not to say that at all. How do you? In fact, it's probably the opposite. I believe it's the opposite. I think I know it's the opposite. But Donna Tartt is from the Delta. She's from Greenwood, Mississippi. And I've talked about the goldfinch before. I haven't done an analysis on the goldfinch, but I would recommend the goldfinch. The Goldfinch is Donna Tartt's book. I haven't seen the film. It was an Amazon movie. I haven't seen it. I don't want to watch it because I don't want to ruin the radiant resonance that I get from the book. The book, and maybe it's because I read the book at a particular time. The book, first of all, was it's funny because it has a whole chapter called Fentanyl Lollipops. I read the book at a time when that was a discovery, but the book is beautiful. It is a fantastic. I really, really like the Goldfinch book. I think it's one of the best novels, especially best American novels written in the past 50 years. It's fucking fantastic. It's really, really special. But I haven't watched the movie. I'm not going to watch it, even though my friend Harry Smith is in the movie. He plays the husband of the girl who goes to the furniture store to go talk, whatever. Anyway, he's in the film. He's got a speaking part in the movie. But anyway, Donna Tartt. Okay, but so let me try and bring this down because I'm kind of all over the place. I get it. People know that with this stuff, but here's where I'll bring it back down to earth here. First of all, Moses writing Genesis is the creation story. That is what happened, and that is the story of Noah, who is Upnapishtim in Gilgamesh. There's a story in Gilgamesh. This is one of the reasons that people know that the flood occurred, because the story of the flood occurs in all of these different cultures, and Gilgamesh is one of those, which is interesting. The ark, actually, he builds an ark. There is a part of it where we have the measurements of the ark, and it does end up on top of a mountain, which would be, I guess, Mount Ararat. I don't know if that's where the ark actually was, but that's, I guess, what people think. But it ends up on top of a mountain where it gets moored, and they send out a dove to test whether the waters have receded. Now, of course, it takes on a pagan element within Gilgamesh because we have this pantheon of these vindictive and vengeful gods instead of course, which is God and the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So the other thing I'll say is this, that Jim Morrison, I was mentioning this earlier, Jim Morrison, if you watch, you think what you will of Jim Morrison. I mean, I of course love it. I'm all about that here. But if you watch or listen to some of the interviews with Jim Morrison, they are pretty fascinating, and not just in the sense that Jim Morrison provides an access point for young men to get into literature in about the 7th grade. That is definitely beyond doubt. But what happens in this interview that Jim Morrison's talking about, Jim Morrison says that American music is a combination of two different strands of music that make American music in particular one of the cultural things that America has given the world. And that is that modern music, especially rock and roll, is a combination of blues music, Delta blues music especially, which is music carried over from the times of slavery and from Africa, combined with hill music, which would be kind of hill country music, hillbilly music, William of Orange, William III, hillbilly, living in the hills. These are the Scots-Irish and the Scots-Irish folk music. And those two things combine to form rhythm and blues, and then rhythm and blues, and then eventually rock and roll. And he's right. He's right about that. And what I really liked about the movie, one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that this movie really does show, in a way that I haven't seen before, how those two things are kind of two streams that run into confluence and then become a kind of river of music. And that flourishes through the 20th century in America and ends up in the film with Buddy, actual musician Buddy Guy, playing the role of the protagonist in the movie in the mid-credits. Is it the mid-credits or post-credits? Mid-credits scene, I guess. Now, the movie's too long. It's too damn long, and it has too many endings. And it also has a scene where after Michael B. Jordan's okay, so, all right, how can I say this? So, Smoke or Stack, Michael B. Jordan, playing twins, ends up turned into a vampire. Now, he's turned into a vampire by, I'm trying to be delicate with this one, you guys. Haley Steinfeld. What's the deal with blues music? Hey, Jerry. What's the deal with this? So Haley Steinfeld is a character who in the film is midway between her ex-lover, which is Smoke or Stack, I don't know, and her own people. So she is in the middle. And she's claimed by the group at the juke joint because she's claimed because they look for a way, the vampires look for a way, and because they see this girl in there and they say, well, how come she gets to come in? Well, they've claimed her. But she's also the first one that they turn in that group, and she ends up being the one, Haley Steinfeld ends up being the one that slithers into the damn place like a snake and turns Michael B. Jordan by sexing him and then biting his damn neck and turning him into a vampire. So she's the Lilith. She's the Lilith character. So is this a subtle way of Ryan Coogler showing a kind of based subversion in terms of the vampirical system of especially his own people's musicians and art forms? Do you understand what I'm saying? And so I think that is, if not intentional, it doesn't really matter if it's intentional. It is one of the things in the movie that I sort of took away from this. But it also shows that regardless, like in Paradise Lost, Satan seeps, start over. In Paradise Lost, Satan heaps sin upon himself continuously with every act, because he has sinned in an instant with the former angels and goes from being an angel of light into an angel at the farthest pole. And one of the ways that he does that is, of course, through a kind of screw tape whispering by telling people that they can be by telling human beings that they can be like gods. And one of the things that we figured out here, that a very, very adept interpretation of this film that was brought to my mind, was that what's interesting is that even in the garden, so God makes the crooked way straight, and he can bring good even out of when good gets subverted into or perverted or inverted into evil, that God can still bring good from that. And Satan even talks about that in Paradise Lost. And that even though Adam and Eve eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil and are cast out, they still are prevented from eating. God cast them out, and we have death, and we have the fallen world, and so that's what we have, and death is a sin, right? I mean, because of what we do, because of our actions, our free will allows us to make the choice, but that we also are prevented from eating from the tree of life in the garden so that we don't sin and live in living death. Does that make sense? So even though we have to die, we don't have to die forever, and we have the promise of redemption in Christ and eternal life. Does that make sense? So what happens in the film is that they want to, because the vampires come, the vampires offer them the chance to live forever, and they can have anything they want, and death ends up being a gift. Because they don't have that. They choose to live forever in sin, and they have no way out of death. They have no way out of death, but they are living in death. So they're not alive. And of course, we talked about this in Bram Stoker's Dracula, how it makes sense that the vampire who is stuck in living death has a body and has riches and material things, and the things that were promised, the things that Satan promises, and try, to Christ in the wilderness, and says you can have all the riches of the world, but can't create anything, and only can imitate, and that it makes sense that the vampire would feast on blood and flesh because it is the flesh and blood of a human who will die. So it's the flesh and blood of death rather than on the living flesh and blood, the body and blood of Christ, which is eternal and which is perfect and which is brings us closer to God. So it makes sense that it's an inversion and that the two things are together in one thing, and they go so differently. They diverge so completely. Does that make sense? I have crossed oceans of time to find you. What blood runs through these veins? Living blood. Remember Bram Stoker's Dracula? That's a great movie, by the way. I love that movie. So, so let me just tie it up with this. My favorite part of the movie is actually there are three songs that the Irish vampires sing. And what I thought was ironic was that their songs were better than the songs in the juke joint. And that I really like, what's the song? Okay, I don't know the song about the song. What's the traditional song about the heather? Hold on, let me look it up. The two songs are that were really good. One was, of course, Rocky Road to Dublin. The other one is, Will You Go, Lassie Go. So those were really great. And Will You Go, Lassie Go is sung amongst the three vampires. And, Van Morrison's covered the song. Of course, Van Morrison, my favorite Van Morrison song is Madam George, about Down to Sandy Row. Right, Crisp? I'm always a little hesitant about particular Irish folk songs because I don't like singing Irish nationalist folk songs, but it is really well done in the film, and we see that Will You Go, Lassie Go becomes a hypnotic song, allowing them their way into to infiltrate this group, but the Rocky Road to Dublin song is a kind of revolutionary song in the film, where we have this gigantic group of people outside, and it's black and white, and the sharecroppers and the Irish, and they're all united in this thing, and now they're all just serving this cult, and there's actually a really good dance sequence, and it was really cool. It was really, really, I thought that was really cool. I thought that was really well done. But overall, the movie is just more, I don't know what else to call this, man. Globalist, we are one, and yet you have to accept this thing, and it's just more, it's just more, it's like just more teaching mass audiences to hate themselves and to, the worst part of it is, and I don't think that movies and literature are best at their didactic point. I mean, things that get too didactic and where ideology replaces religion, for example, are just always the same. They just always end up being the same. It's always the same. It's that instead of belief in God and instead of belief in God's greatness and tradition, and we can all, you can work things out, and you can all have your own thing, and you can be kind to one another, and it's just all essentially treating other people like you want to be treated, but still having boundaries and still having things. Instead of that, it's that everybody needs to be free to do whatever they want all the damn time without consequences. And that's what the movie becomes. And at the end of the film, we see Michael B. Jordan show up. Now he's kind of absorbed his brother into himself in terms of our interpretation of the movie. And then he shows up and he does a mass scooting on the group of guys who show up to shut down the barn. And you're supposed to think, I suppose, that they're showing up to get rid of the people who were at the juke joint. But it's also early in the morning. I mean, it's the next morning. Everybody would be gone. So I don't get what that's about. Are they going to show? They're going to show up to burn down the barn? Are they going to show up? Why would he burn down his own property if he's collecting? If he just got it paid to him because they don't want them there? I suppose. But there's no indication that they think that people are in it. So I didn't really get that. It was kind of incongruous. And then we have the credits, and then we have this post-credit scene where Haley Steinfeld is still around. Haley Steinfeld, she's still around, and now she's partnered up with Michael B. Jordan in a Biggie Smalls Cliff Huxtable sweater, and they show up at this place, and they offer one more time the promise of eternal living death to Buddy Guy, and he says, hell no. He says, hey, hell no. He says, what the helly? What the hell? Hey, hell no. Okay, that was really bad. I'm sorry. But he says, hell no, get on out of here, which is great. And so that's essentially the movie. I don't know. Any questions? I hope I kind of... I'm not trying to do a review of this. I hope that was insightful for somebody who is thinking about this movie, Sinners. I went back and rewatched Black Panther also, and it's I like Michael. I mean, Michael B. Jordan is a very charismatic actor, and he's very good. But we're not just talking about actors here. Buddy Guy is in the movie. Yes, he is in the film, and he plays the young character who now has grown up into a famous blues musician whose name is whatever, but is played by Buddy Guy, and he's in the movie. So that's pretty cool. I did like that they added that. But I don't know. It's more of, Black Panther also has this instead of the Black Panther character showing up and in his death sequence and in his vision sequences going into heaven or at the tree of life, he's showing up at the tree of his ancestors. And he's talking to his ancestors. And of course, so this is the kind of pagan thing that we get in terms of the Yoruba and this is every pagan thing, being there in the interdimensional afterlife with your ancestors, worshiping at the altar of your own blood, and that's just more. That's just more of where Genesis is trying to tell you can't do this shit. So, I just think there's a mistake with it's just that's just more subversion. It's not really necessarily politically driven. That's just a belief that I think it's just gone wrong in the world. That's just part of our problem in the world. So anyway, I'd like to give a shout out to Ethan right there who dropped $20 in Cash App. Hey, thank you, Ethan. Really appreciate you all the time. You are the best. Thank you. Thank you so much for supporting me. Really, that is so wonderful. Thank you so much. I would like to give a very, very special shout out. Hold on, let me find this. Yo. Yeah, I'd like to give a very special shout out here to a couple of people here. First of all, thank you to the Real John Connor who supported me. Hey, thank you, Real John Connor, who dropped a big fat super chat. Thank you so much. You are the best. Thank you so much. Hey, shouts out to Circle G who dropped 50 bones there. Thank you so much, Circle G. Big time. Really appreciate you there, homeboy. Big time. Thank you so much. Yo, shouts out to Jason for that $10. Really appreciate you. Thank you so much, bud. You are the best. And I'm looking at my super chats here. So I had some big time support. This stream. Hold on, let me open it up right here. If you guys want to support, you can do that through super chats. You can ask me a question on here via super chats. You can also you can send me a question. Mm-hmm. Hold on, I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to make my way through all this because this was a sponsored stream. Yeah. Fucking hell, man. I know where to find it. You guys coming up, of course, again, hey, thank you to Token right there for that $1.99. Thank you for that, sir. Thank you for that super chat. Really appreciate you. Thank you to all the members, all the special beings out there. Hey, there we go. Thank you to, I don't want to dox anybody here with names, so I'm going to say thank you to Amy B. Thank you for that $25 sponsoring the stream. That is the best. And thank you to Adam, who also sponsored this stream. $100. Thank you so much. Wondering if I would do a review of Sinners when I get a chance. Hey, I was right on it. So thank you so much to Adam and Amy. Really appreciate you there. Y'all are the best. Thank you for sponsoring this one. Thank you. That's your first super chat. Thank you to Token right there. Really appreciate you, buddy. I always say Token. Of course, again, yeah, like I said, I'm going to be doing the movie The Surfer with Nicolas Cage with Jay. I'll also be covering The Magician's Nephew. That'll be my next literary analysis here. I'll be covering C.S. Lewis's Magician's Nephew. And what else? I've got, what is it? C.S. Lewis, Till We Have Faces. I'll be doing that soon. And maybe this William Golding novel coming up. We've, of course, done Lord of the Flies. The Surfer was a bit Lord of the Flies. Lord of the Flies is really coming up a lot in movies now, and I think that's because the kind of degeneration of society into savage aspects is getting some provenance from William Golding, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and of course we've covered that. Now, what we actually saw was that, you remember there was a few years ago, there was a group of prep school kids who did crash land on a deserted island, and the exact opposite thing happened. They did not end up killing each other, and they actually formed a well-functioning society amongst themselves and took some leadership, and that was pretty good. You know, we always sort of see this, and we're constantly told that the worst will happen in every situation, but I think we forget the beauty of the human spirit because life is fiery with its beauty. Yep, coming up, we got a bunch more stuff here. All right, so I think that's going to about do it. It's going to be about it. Listen, I would recommend that everybody read Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is an important work for us to read, and I think that, especially in terms of the hero's journey and what we see with commonalities with Scripture, which are pretty striking in this work from around 2000 BC. Now, one of the things that I think that comes out of this also, because I've been thinking a lot about the antediluvian world and literature, and one of the things that comes out of this also is that Gilgamesh goes up to the mountain to talk to the gods, and this is the reason. I mean, I know you guys know this, but this is the reason that we see the Sumerian ziggurats and we see the pyramids and various structures all over the world, where they are meant to mimic mountaintop structures where these people go up and where they talk to demons. But it's really Christ talking to Moses and Elijah, and God says that this is his son with whom he's well pleased. And the disciples say, "That's good. This is God. This is actually God. We're seeing God." And it is not Shamash and Ishtar. These are demons that are subverting human beings. And this is one of the things that I think that comes out of the flood. I don't know what the deal is with the pyramids. I don't know what the deal is with Pangea and all this stuff. I tend to think this may sound a little, what does Jamie always say and what Isaac says, woo-woo. But I think that it would make sense. It would make sense that if the world is created and we have Eden, and that we have the continents, which all look like they fit together, that the reason for all of these things being in different parts of the world but looking like they were all the same is not damn aliens. It's that the consequence in the generations from Adam and Noah, or Adam to Noah, in the pre-flood era, with Cain wandering and then Tubal-Cain, and then the Tower of Babel. If the when the Tower of Babel occurs and we get the dispersal of people, it would make sense that the flood washes over everything, and that the continents, the dispersal of people also occurs when the continents get spread. Is that too woo woo? That the continents get spread, and so that's the reason why we have ziggurat here. We have the temples in Cambodia, and we have all this stuff. And the reason that they found water, evidence of water in the pyramids, that the pyramids must be some remnant of which was washed over from the flood. So it's not just that people were using the waters of the Nile. They were flooding the Nile to move the stone to build the pyramids. It's that, Gilgamesh and giants are building pyramids and are building these giant things, and then they get washed over and destroyed in their sin, and that now we have the world that comes afterwards. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you want to support, that would be great. I mean, I think that might be a little woo-woo, but C.S. Lewis made Token right, the Atlantis myth. I mean, is that Atlantis? I don't know. That sort of makes sense to me. But who knows what I know? I'm just some guy. So let's look at, let's see if we have any super chats, and then we will get out of here, you guys. Let's check it out. Yeah. Also, hey, shouts out to Captain Clutch Studio right there, who drops $1.99, and he says, any dictionary you recommend for learning words? Yeah, that's a good question. Look, it's interesting you bring up dictionaries. I think the Oxford English Dictionary is the dictionary you have to go to, obviously. That should be your study material. And then after the Oxford English Dictionary, I think that you should go to, everybody here should have a copy of Strunk and White, which is Rules for Grammar and Punctuation. If you want to be a writer of any kind, or just a speaker, if you want to learn how to analyze literature, I think Strunk and White is great. In terms of, I think everybody should get the Dictionary of Literature, and which I've talked about before, and also X.J. Kennedy's The Western Wind, Where It Wilt Thou Blow, the Hard Rain Down Can Rain, Christ in My Love Were in My Arms and I in My Bed Again. Everybody should get a copy of Western Wind. And then, of course, things like The Western Canon by Harold Bloom are great, but the Oxford English Dictionary and reading the King James Bible for the foundations of English and, of course, Shakespeare are great. Jason says, I love reading the dictionary. I'm a total autistic nerd, so I read the dictionary. I love the dictionary. I love etymology. One cool thing is that I have a dictionary of prefixes and suffixes from a biology class in ninth grade, and I use it all the time. I don't care about science. I don't care about biology. I was sitting there eating crayons in the class and drinking glue. But what I did get from the class was the dictionary of prefixes and suffixes, and that gives me a Latinate sense of how the English language is developed out of Germanic, Latin, and Greek. Hey, Pablo sends $5 and says, top shelf, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think everybody should get a dictionary. And one harmful thing that you should avoid is, of course, a thesaurus. A thesaurus is the type of thing that every writer, like in high school, thinks that they should have, especially when they're, use the thesaurus when you're writing creative writing. Don't do that. You should never use a thesaurus. If you are a person who does any kind of creative writing, if you create anything, even if you're doing business writing, which is a kind of creative writing, although it's sort of sanitized, you should not use a thesaurus. You should never go to a thesaurus. A thesaurus is not for people who need to learn, and I'm not saying learn language like as if it's a first language, like learn your own language. It's not for you. A thesaurus is for someone who knows words and knows language and is just trying to think of a word they can't already think of. That's the only person that it's for. A thesaurus is probably one of the most harmful things for a writer to have. You should simply go to the Oxford English Dictionary and learn words. And the best way to learn, and I'm talking about chew on words, to really learn words, is to read. And that's, we think in words, we dream in words, we pray in words, and we should practice that and use that muscle by continuously reading. And I know I'm not trying to get anybody to read here. I read kind of for you, but you should be reading, especially in the world that we live in. I think, I will go ahead and say that. I think that one of the marks of for instance, a fully civilized man is to read. You must read. And if you think that reading only has to be the high-minded, high IQ reading for you to further your soul, it doesn't have to be. Reading any kind of words continuously, exercising it like a muscle can do this too. This is why I covered children's literature with Jamie. We covered Peter Pan. You can go back and read fairy tales, read the things that you read as a child. And those, the past is prologue. This can be particularly edifying for you to go back and listen to words and read words that have kind of gotten lost in your soul. So, yeah, read bad stuff too. You got to read. Read bad stuff, read good. You don't know what the good stuff is really till you read some of the bad stuff. And I've read a lot of bad books. I've read many bad books, and it's very hard for me to pick up a book and then put it down before I've read the entire book. I want to read the book, but I have done that before. There are some books that I just cannot read. I don't know. I don't want to give any examples, but there are some books that are not worth the time, but you've got to sort of dive into them. Otherwise, make your choices and decisions about books that you read beforehand and try and source them out. Hey, if you want a book list, people often ask me for a book list, and I don't have a website, so I don't have a book list up. But I will say that if I were to give you a book list, go through the titles of my YouTube channel and look at my books, especially from the first 2.5 years of this channel. Just go through those. You should start with the King James Bible and then go and read ancient literature. You should read Plato, Aristotle. You should read Homer, obviously. You should read the Iliad first. Read things like Gilgamesh. Read the national epics. You should read the Song of Roland, El Cid. Read the Aeneid, which we've covered. Read Dante's Inferno. Read Paradise Lost. And then you can make your way into sort of modern epics, and you could try to read things like James Merrill and even William Carlos Williams. Read William Carlos Williams' impressionistic short imagist poems. Read Ezra Pound. We just did a biography of The Wasteland. Read Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot. Read Dylan Thomas, Ted Hughes. Read John Milton. Read John Donne, Meditation 17. Read his Holy Sonnets. Read Beowulf. Exactly. Beowulf is one of the first things that we covered here. We covered that a number of times. Read Shakespeare. I would start off with Macbeth. I wouldn't start with Hamlet. Read Macbeth. Of course, that was the very first thing that we covered here. And then you can make your way into foreign language poems and literature, especially things like, read French impressionistic poetry. People should read those. You don't have to be a high-minded, high IQ, academic-based guy to read the Arthurian legends. You can read Chrétien de Troyes. You can start off with reading Sir Thomas Malory. You can read those things. Those things are important for us. Reading chivalric literature is important. You should read those because they make you a better human being. They make you understand what it means to be a Christian, to understand the world, to understand what truth, beauty, and goodness are. Read Gerard Manley Hopkins. Read Bret Easton Ellis. You should read Bret Easton Ellis. You should read postmodern literature. You should. You should read Cormac McCarthy and Don DeLeo and all these people, because the one thing that they have is they love words. And those loving words and understanding language as if it's food, allows you to better express yourself and to better understand through your own conscience and your own inner voice the way that you can describe the things that you see and to understand creation. So I think those things are very important. Let's see if there's any other super chats real quick. You guys, please help me to get these numbers up. I need to get these numbers up. I need to be getting big numbers here. We're almost at 4,000 subs. You guys, please help me to get to 4,000 subscribers. I can't believe we're almost at 4,000. Thank you to everybody listening to this. We're just, doing literature and movies, and I know there's a lot of stuff out there people can listen to. So I really appreciate you taking the time just to listen to me babble on about literature and film and music. And we've covered painting, we've covered art. So thank you to everybody for taking the time to do that. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I will do some kind of a party stream for that for you guys. If you've got ideas for things you want me to cover, please drop them in the comments below. I'll be doing the things that I mentioned. And I think that's about it. Lots more books and movies to come. And shouts out to Rooks G out there who lets us use his beautiful music. Shouts out to everybody out there. I hope everybody on any trips they're having a good time. Hey, take care of your friends, your families. Take care of your animals, your pets. Let's go hard. We're gonna go hard. I move to the left. I swerve to the right. Let's go hard into spring and summer. And let's get it popping. I'm going to another reunion party tomorrow night for my school. Not my reunion. I had my 25th reunion last year. Damn, last millennium. But I'll be doing that tomorrow night. And, so that will be fun. Anybody traveling out there, I pray for you. I hope you're doing well out there. Again, please support our friends out there who are doing so well. I know everybody is, but they are really killing it. And let them know who sent you. Let them know. Go to Rooks G just for fun. Tell them that I sent you, because we need to support him and his music. Everybody out there, I love y'all. And hit me up at my email, madmaximism2x@gmail.com. You can send me a super chat anytime. Please help support me. I need funds. I need that money. I need to get books. I need to pay this damn internet and electric bill. And I got big things in my personal life that I'm trying to get going here. Right? Because we all, we all enter phases of our life and good new phases. So please hit me up with that. So anyway, let's take it out here. Let's try something we haven't listened to in a while. Let's go to a Rooks G. Let's listen to Rooks G. Soul Crusher. How about that? Want to listen to Soul Crusher? Hey, y'all. I love y'all. Peace. Listen, was it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it if you're strong enough. Peace. Here we go. There we go. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, everybody out there. Thank you for stopping by. Love y'all. Shouts out to Mella out there, Real John Connor, all my friends, everybody in the chat. If you're in the chat right now, thank you. If you're listening to this, I love you. Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. All right. Peace.